Welcome, everyone. I'm Kathleen Elmore. I'm co-founder and managing partner of Engagys. Engagys is a healthcare consultancy laser focused on driving consumer health behavior change for our clients. We've been around for about 7 years now, and we are laser focused on healthcare engagement. Our team really spans decades of consumer experience in healthcare. We have technologists, we have data scientists, we have folks that specialize in B2B engagement. But overall, we all have one thing in common, which is all we've worked on for the last 2 decades, day in, day out, is helping health plans, healthcare organizations, and health tech drive better consumer engagement and experience. This is a snapshot of our client list. As I mentioned, we have 5 of the top 6 nationals, blues, regionals, and many health techs. And helping health tech organizations helps our health plan customers in 2 ways. One is we kind of can see around corners to understand what's new, what's happening. And then 2, we see who in our health tech world has real outcomes, especially in the AI world right now, of kind of who is really still in their beta phases and who's driving real outcomes for plans. So we have a lot to offer our customers, both in expertise and in implementation. The way that we work is really twofold. One is, this is called the waterline slide, one is this idea of everything above the waterline that impacts a consumer directly. That might be the data and targeting and segmentation strategy. It might be behavioral science in your messaging. It might be how you stack your channels to feel seamless or not seamless. All has a significant outcome on whether or not consumers act. But what we always say is, in order to get that right and optimized, there's all this work below the waterline that doesn't touch consumers. Things like the enabling infrastructure, the marketing automation, and a lot of the things that you MCRA members have to offer plans in this area might fall under the waterline or above the waterline. But we're deep in these areas helping our plans understand how to implement, where to find those quick wins, and frankly, who's out there across the landscape that can fill on the needs and capabilities that they have. We do things like building a C360 or capturing preferences and permissions. Even orchestrating channels will have a big impact on outcomes. When we work, we don't usually see competition above the waterline. Either if we lose to internal folks where they want to do it themselves. But below the waterline, we do run into the typical management consulting, Accenture, Deloitte. But when we win, it's because we're the only ones that actually do both above and below. And so we know the details of, for instance, what it takes to drive a colorectal screening that then inform that technology build and those requirements for that C360. We know how consumers interact with the portal and their health plan. So when we're creating logical buckets for preferences and permissions, they make sense to consumers. So that is really our secret sauce expertise, is that we know engagement more deeply and better than anyone else. This is what I call the engagement funnel. This is one way to think about that above the waterline work. There's all of these things that are happening in the strategy and goals, that how you set that goal and what you're laser focused on will have a big impact on everything else in that funnel. Targeting, sometimes people always want to focus on what that message is and in trying to optimize behavior change with consumers. But your bigger bang for the buck is to get your targeting and segmentation right. Why? Because reach is a huge issue with health plans and with healthcare organizations. And so if you can get more people into that funnel by expanding your reach, then you have more people to A/B test new messages on when it finally gets down that funnel. We do work in channel mix and what channels are most effective for who to drive what actions. And frankly, it varies wildly. Like people always say, how often do people want to be communicated to? What channels do they want us to use? Well, it depends. If I'm writing something that needs documentation, I might start, like a signature. I might start with a letter that's co-branded for credibility. And then I might send them an email with a DocuSign, because that's kind of that last touch that will get us over the edge. In other ways, I want them to go schedule an appointment. I might do an automated call. That way I can capture their intent of today, this month, this year, unsure. And if they say today, maybe I can transfer them right away to getting that final outcome of behavior to get that scheduled. So channel mix, timing, frequency, all wildly depend on who you're talking to and what you're trying to drive. Lastly, I'll just talk a little bit about kind of the message barriers and content design. In the rest of the world, the benefits are the key piece to drive behavior. And the barrier, frankly, is price. In the healthcare world, a lot of us know what the benefit things, getting your mammogram, getting your colorectal screening. And many times it's the barriers that get in your way to make or break whether or not consumers act. And I'll give you a great example. If I asked two folks to get their colorectal screenings and one said, you know what, I have no time for that. And the other one said, oh gosh, I hate that chalky liquid. It's horrible. Well, if I said to the person whose barrier was time, hey, the liquid tastes so much better these days, that's noise, right? And so it's really getting personalized and understanding barriers that will help unlock the secrets of behavior change. But thinking about that in kind of the lens of content, one big area to focus on is behavioral science. And a lot of people now are talking about it, but you must be careful in behavioral science because, again, it goes back to who you're talking to and the action you're trying to drive. And I'll give you a great example. We see some of the tech platforms out there focused on taking generative AI content based off the non-verticalized LLMs and bringing it to healthcare. Well, what's the most powerful motivator and behavioral science motivator for outside of healthcare purchases or behavior change? It's fear of missing out. That's why Amazon says to you, hey, only 3 left in the store and it's in your cart. You better act now. Well, what happens when you take fear and you apply it to consumers in healthcare? You have scared members and you have blowback and you have people doing what's called the behavioral science ostrich move, which is sticking your head in the sand and doing nothing. So you really want to be careful about using your behavioral science wisely. We've done 2 decades of A/B testing in behavioral science to really understand what drives which populations for which actions. We were recognized by NCQA years ago for moving the needle for people of Hispanic descent on colorectal screenings. And again, it's no one silver bullet. It really means going through that engagement funnel and peeling back layer by layer of when are we contacting them? How are we contacting them? What's the message? What's the message for who? And I'll give you a fun example that even when you find a winning A/B, it doesn't work for everybody and for every action. So in the example on NCQA, we tested male and female voices on an automated call. Sure enough, female voices won in every, of every dissent except for one. And we hypothesized that female voice would win because that's the quintessential nurse stereotype. But for people of Hispanic descent, not only did male voices win, they won by 86%. And so really understanding kind of that personalization of these behavioral science tactics is what Engagys brings to the table. So we'll give you some examples of how we've driven measurable results for health plans. So when given an opportunity to implement our engagement strategies, we drive measurable results. And the reason we say the opportunity to implement is it's one thing to hand a deck with recommendations, which a lot of consulting companies do. We're different. We actually do the work. And the reason that's different is because we could say, hey, use FOMO or use authority, but there's 17 different ways to apply that. And there's only one kind of best way. And so making sure we take it all the way to the final outcomes, whether it's creating copy and emails and SMS texts, we're going to write the copy, we're going to create the design. If it's below the waterline, we're going to do the technology requirements. We're going to set up the process docs. We're going to actually project manage the work so that we make sure the success is in the details. But again, going back to some examples, I'll do one in particular was we had a 50% increase in patient enrollment rates for behavioral health using optimized engagement messaging. And again, this was a game of inches, many little different, every sentence we took a different tact and worked in optimizations to really drive better outcomes. We've had 60% of folks sustained engagement in a year-long hypertension program. And we not only kept them in, but for 57% of the people, our program took them out of control blood pressure to in control blood pressure. And the NPS on the program was about 84%. So not only did it help drive health outcomes, but it actually kept people engaged and drove satisfaction. So when you get a triple whammy like that, it's great. Higher re-enrollment for an intervention group versus a control and a smoking cessation group. Again, with figuring out when to contact people was a big differentiator in that one. And then finally, this 147% was all kinds of little optimizations, trying different subject lines, trying different behavioral science messaging, who signed the documents, all of those things came into play to, again, drive better engagement. This is a case study that dives into onboarding. Onboarding, this project was both above the waterline and below the waterline. So we built campaigns to drive better engagement and digital adoption, but we also completely changed the way they did onboarding by, they were kind of what I called kitchen sinking it before that, whereas like it was overwhelming to consumers. There was so much in there. And so we looked at the data to figure out what the right segments were and figured out what's most important to those segments. If you're someone who's on pharmacy, obviously first fill is going to be super important. If you're someone that's never been on pharmacy, it might not be as important. And we used kind of that really personalized onboarding for different segments to kind of make that the gateway to what we needed them to do next, right? Getting them in, showing value, getting them sticky and engaged, then gave us permission. We'd earned that trust. So then asked them to do other things as we went through. We had fantastic results. They had 50% of the population felt more informed about their benefit plan. 25% became more satisfied during the onboarding experience. 50% found value in one or more of the promoted digital products, which was amazing, better than they'd ever had. And overall, 60% gained a more positive perception of the brand. And that other 40% was neutral. It wasn't even that they were more negative. So there was only upside to the program. This is a kind of overall member-based touchpoint prioritization and orchestration. As you know, healthcare is incredibly siloed. And so what happens is there's many times where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and that impacts the consumer experience, the trust factor, and the engagement factor. We worked with a medium-sized Blues plan that had a data breach, and one department sent out the data breach announcement. The next day, another department, unbeknownst that the data breach notification went out, they sent their annual NPS the next day, right? So thinking about how everything coordinates together is really critical. In this case, it was focused on pharmacy and a PBM. It was a health plan, but that had a pharmacy piece to it. And so they had 60 pharmacy and preventative care touch points in the mix. All kinds of lack coordination, lower engagement. So in year one, not only did we reduce their touch points by 50% because they had a lot of redundant touch points, we increased their call completion from 7% to 28%. And it didn't stop there. Sometimes these things take a while to build. And so the continued good work of governing ended up really paying off in year two, where we got an additional 25% reduction in touch points. And we took the call to action percentages from 28% to 40%. So big wins. So why Engagys? I probably had highlighted all the way through, but just to say it again, we feel like our expertise accelerates time to results. So a lot of times, even when plans want to do it themselves, sometimes they lack capacity, but sometimes they lack expertise. And so being able to pull Engagys in as people that understand this better than anyone, so we can leapfrog what's normally done to get to those best optimizations and really deliver quick wins and value fast. We actually, again, we understand practical innovation. And so a lot of times there's, workarounds and things like that. That doesn't stop us. We roll up our sleeves, get things done. People have talked about the fact that we have engagement expertise unlike any other. And then finally, what our clients love most about us is we actually do the work. We don't just hand the PowerPoint deck over. We roll up our sleeves and take it to the final mile. So with that concludes my About Us. So follow us on LinkedIn. We do a Tip Tuesday. We do AI tips. We do all kinds of things that help our clients and our followers better engage their members. So we hope to see you on there, and I hope to see you at a live meeting soon. Thank you so much.